Okay, as far as an ATC, this gives you a definition of what it is. Again, trying to stress that it must provide a solution that is equal or better, and that was one of the little clarifications that Jerry mentioned is with the final rulemaking, I think 2016. Okay, so any questions on ATCs? We'll keep moving through with as far as what they are. Allows for the proposed alternatives to contract requirements that are equal or better. It happens during the procurement. So as Leah mentioned, you go out with the RFQ, RFP, you allow some time for the ATCs to formulate depending on what your criteria is. Must be included as part of the technical price or technical and price proposal if design build wants to implement. So again, if you want it, you got to document it. Design build team takes all the risks associated with implementation unless otherwise agreed. So that's where you may or may not want to pay your a stipend for it. So the idea is consider whether you want a conceptual submittal or a formal submittal. Again, that's a criteria that you get to establish. And in those submittals, this just sort of gives you an idea of things that you may want to consider. The thing is, from what you've heard so far, would you say any ideas could be an ATC? Okay, so if you're saying the barn door is open and anything's good, what does that mean for how many people does Leah need to help evaluate those ATCs if you do that? Probably everybody in this room. So you, staffing and resource-wise, you may want to squeeze that down a little bit, refine it, so it gives you some way to sift through it, and in essence pre-qualify those proposals. But then you need to consider what in that submittal, whether or not you want to make it whether a confidentiality meeting adjustment or discussion is needed. So again, ATCs are good, but you may want to put some boundaries on the criteria, otherwise you're setting yourself up for a lot of what I call spin cycles, which the first time around or two may be good, but if you've got a lot of other things to do, you can quickly get buried in submittals. So be careful there. Any other criteria you could see you may want to try or throw in there? From what I've got up, and again, that's just a sampling. Okay, so keep that in mind. So as far as alternative concepts, just so you know, here's an example of what they had for ones on the Maryland Intercity County Connector that was open for construction about 3-4 years ago, if I remember right. So look at the description and look at the value. No, as far as it could be the cost and or the debit to the project as far as a cost equal and or better. So for that ATC, for the cost coming in, those were the dollar value of that. Here in essence, the way I sort of look at these, be like a addendum, a change order, a mini PS&E for that particular item of work, in addition to the existing contract. So the thing, the idea of the table here is just trying to give you an idea of some of the ATCs, not knowing completely what each description evolved to or evolved from the original contract, but dollar value and just a quick description that could apply to a lot of projects, bigger projects. You know, because the proof is in the pudding when you get in to start looking under the rocks to see what the actual work incorporated is.
Are those publicized on agency websites during the process, or are they silent to everybody else?
When the ATCs come in?
Yeah.
No, here.
From the team.
Here, no, here, for confidentiality, something we'll touch on there. Yeah, the ATCs are supposed to be confidential, so there's been some states where they don't even want to take notes. That's why they want to have a set core group, so they're sort of sharing their own thing, because the flip side is, or the concern, is for FOA, for Federal Highways Freedom of Information Act, and/or most states have a Sunshine Act, that under discovery, if the contractor asked, you'd have to disclose it. I don't think that's been actually invoked yet that I'm aware of. You heard of any, Jerry? But that's one of the concerns, because we, talked this a little bit earlier about confidentiality, dealing with the contractor. They don't want to give up their wild card, joker card, ace card. So I guess I'd say that's still under potential evolution, but we're trying to caution the states that if you take notes, worst case, if you were had a claim and or queried for your scoring and or what it was, you may have to release those publicly based upon your sunshine law. So to me, that would be something you'd want to see what your legal would say if and when, say, subpoenaed. Okay? Good question. That one can hopefully provide a little more comfort to the contracting community on just how the importance of the confidentiality meeting. Okay? Questions? Okay, next question. Is the value engineering required for design build projects? And why isn't it required? Yeah, under our 23 CFR 636, it says a VE is not required. But is it encouraged? Yes, okay, good. See, practice, practice, practice.